Joined by former Admirals head coach Claude Noel. Claude, you are one of two guys, I think, that were here for every time the Admirals were in a championship game or in a championship series. You were one of two guys, I think, that was here for the best of times, the 2004 championship, and then that 87-88 season. So let's start a little bit with your first memory of Milwaukee, when I'm assuming you're playing for Toledo and coming here for the title in 82-83.
Yeah, 82-83, yeah, they were playing at the Mecca. The Admirals were playing at the Mecca at that time, and we had a really good team. We ended up first overall, and the Admirals had a really good team as well, with guys like Dale Yakachuk and I think John Flesh and a lot of good names, and we ended up in the finals and we beat them. We had a good team as well. We played in Toledo where they had the advantage was the small rink in Toledo, but it was a really good memory going back and playing against the Admirals then, because they had some tough teams then. Now
you end up playing for the Admirals in 87-88, which, did you have any idea that it would be as rough that season as it turned out to be?
Not really, you know, and I don't even know that I was in touch with what was going on, because that was the transition year between the Mecca and when the Bradley Center was getting built, and they were playing at Wilson Park Arena, which was the practice facility. They put the stands in there, and it was cold, but you know what, it was good. It was sold out, I think, every game, because it sat like 2,500 or something like that. So it was a different year, but it wasn't so much the venue that was the deal that year. That was going to be my last year, and it was my last year. Retired after that, but more than anything, that season was the losing. We lost a lot of games. It was a really tough year. It was a transitional year for the Admirals. We had three affiliations: Hartford, Boston, and another team. So we had a lot of players from different NHL teams. The IHL back then was transitioning from being an independent league to now having affiliated teams, and so there was like 5-6 teams now starting to get affiliations. And we went through a period of time where we lost, I can't remember, it was 19 or 21 straight games. And I mean, the pain of that was something that you really don't want to experience too much as a player or a coach or management or anything. But you know, sometimes you have to lose to win, and it was a really good lesson for me, and it was a tough year.
What drew you here? You said it was your final year as a player, but what was it? The only place that had a job? Certainly, you could have played somewhere else.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I was in Kalamazoo. I'd been with Bill Inglis when we won here with the Toledo Gold Diggers in 82-83. We beat the Admirals, and Bill Inglis had turned out and went to Kalamazoo, and I went with him and was probably happy to stay there and would have stayed there. But what happened was the Minnesota North Stars went into Kalamazoo, Michigan, and put all the players there. So I wanted to play another year, and this was a really good area to play, a really good place to play. Phil Whitloff was here, and very well respected, and for me, that's the area where I decided would be the best place for me to play, and it just turned out to be my last year. And things are changing. I was 33 years old, 32, 33 then, and I was getting older. The league was getting younger, and I could just see that it was time. I didn't need to be told at that age. I didn't need to be told when the time to retire. The player was just a lot better. I wasn't able to do the things that I was when I was younger, so I really enjoyed the time here. My family was young then. My boys were 4 and 2, I think, right around there. We lived in West Dallas, and it was wonderful. We had a really good time here. Other than the losing, it was a really good place to play.
So when you are going through this season, is that when you first thought of coaching, or had you thought of it for quite some time?
No, you know what? When I started to think about coaching, it's funny, but when I was 27 years old, I went over to Austria to play. After the year we won in the finals against the Admirals 82-83, I got an opportunity to go back to Europe, went to Austria to be an import in the B League there. And they were allowed 2 imports, and they called me back after 2 weeks and said, would you like to be the head coach? And I'm like, head coach? I was 27 years old, so I thought, well, I'm not sure if I'm quite into coaching. I thought of it a bit. I still wanted to play another 5 or 6 years. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. I was always up for a challenge, and that's how I got into the coaching part, and that never worked out. We ended up first overall that year in the league in Austria. Good year. It was a good year experience for me as a coach. as a young coach, but then I came back to the IHL and then ended up playing another 4 or 5 years and was a player assistant coach a lot, and that's how I kind of evolved into the coaching profession.
And eventually as an assistant coach, and then after that eventually the head coach of the Admirals. What was the process like when you took over as the head coach here in Milwaukee?
Well, you know what? It'd been quite a bit different. So I came here in the 90s, mid-90s. I can't remember exactly the time, 96 or something like that, or 98. Al Sims was here as the, and there was still when I came here, I left Kalamazoo. I was with the Dallas Stars. I got let go from them. Al Sims was the head coach here. And Nashville Predators were coming in as an NHL
in 98.
team. Yeah, in 98, and that was their first year's affiliation. Well, I had a lot of experience working as an affiliated with an affiliated team because I just come from Dallas. Al Sims really didn't have a lot of experience in that respect, so it was good for me. I came here was an assistant coach for 4 years, 2 years under Al Sims, 2 years under Dave Allison, and then I belonged to the Nashville Predators. They made a coaching change, and then they swept both coaches. So I went back to the East Coast League, and then I returned 1 year later. My family stayed here, returned 1 year later, and then came in back as a head coach. So the transitional year was really good for me because I was here 4 years as an assistant, and there was a lot of things I had to think about and clear up in my own mind in order to figure out how am I going to get over this being fired from Kalamazoo with Dallas, and there were some things I had to figure out there. So I had some time to think about that over the 4 years I was an assistant. So I was very ready to get back to being a head coach, which I was in the East Coast League in Toledo Storm for 1 year, and then came back with Nashville and knew who they were. I knew all the people here. I knew all the players pretty much. I'd only missed 1 year when Peter Horachek was here. And came back. We had a really good team, and I was really fortunate because of the 4 years I was here. 3 of those years we got over 100 points. In the 4th year we were 4 points shy of 100 points. So we had a lot of success here. But the transitional period for me was really good because I was able to get my coaching hat as a head coach prepared back in the East Coast League with Toledo. That prepared me 1 year to come up here and coach in the American League. And we had some veteran guys, and I was very ready to get back to this level, which I'd been with Kalamazoo as a head coach as well. So it really prepared me to come back to this level here and deal with, deal with players that have won Stanley Cups. We had Tony Herkus who ended up winning here and won a Stanley Cup in Dallas. And older players and how to deal with those players, how to deal with them with confidence. That was the key. And we had a lot of success. We had some really good teams here. We had some. It turned out the years that I came back here as a head coach, I probably reaped the benefits of the maturity of the Nashville Predators, because as their younger guys, as they were maturing with their organization, they'd been in the league 5 years, 6 years now with the National Hockey League. Now you started to see the Shea Webbers and the Ryan Suiters and the Upshaws and the Tutus. All those guys started to come through Milwaukee and play through here. So they had, I really reaped the benefits of their drafting good young players. And so we were able to see that here in Milwaukee. A lot of the young players that came through here that now are successful NHL players came through a lot of the time that I was here.
And let's talk about just a couple of them. Pekka Rinne was a rookie in 05-06 here. And kind of took the reins from Brian Finley and led the team to the championship round.
Yeah. Well, Pekka Rinne was one of many guys that came through here, but it was a young player that was drafted late, in the late rounds, and good young goalie. And he was here 1 year and
Was he on your radar at the beginning? I mean, because Brian Finley was established in this league and was a first-round pick. I mean, he was going to be the #1 guy for you, right?
And was pretty much. And Pekka Rinne was here as a guy to challenge and see. We didn't know him very much. He was a 7th, 8th round pick, or he was up there, but he was a guy that was 6'5", very athletic. They were pretty high on him. And so I think the play of the goalies just dictated how it would go. Eventually, Pekka Rinne took over the #1 job from his play, and then really took us straight through the playoff series, then right through to the finals where we lost in 6 games to the Hershey Bears. They won it here in Milwaukee, but he was a really good goalie and really was a young guy at that time. Probably had a little trouble dealing with the pressures of the finals at a young age, and but I thought he did a wonderful job. I don't think we would have got to the finals had it not been for him. So he was part of the success that we had here. He was one of the guys. There was others as well.
A couple, yeah, and one of them was Darren Hadar, who for whatever reason has not stuck in the NHL, but he is one of the great winners of all time at this level.
Well, Darren Hadar was a guy that had won Rookie of the Year when Peter Horchak was here, and I was not here. That was the 1 year I was away. So when I came here, my first year as a head coach in 2003-04 when we won it, Darren Hadar had been the Rookie of the Year, and I remember coming here, and him and I were at odds because he was trying to duplicate his season. He had a really good year, and I was trying to get him to play more responsible. So we were really going at it back and forth through the year, and it took us 3 or 4 months to get on the same wavelength. But he was a key player for us in the year that we won it in 03-04. I mean, he could easily have been the MVP that Wade Flaherty was, but he was leading the playoffs in scoring, and he was a dynamic player here in Milwaukee for us. He had some great years, and has since moved on to another opponent that we don't want to deal with, and has had a lot of success in the American Hockey League. But you know, he was a very intelligent player.
I want to ask about your take on a couple more players. I'll start with one of the top 5 players maybe in the NHL right now, Shea Weber.
Well, Shea Weber was great. You knew when you got Shea Weber that he had leadership. You just knew that when you got him, and it was very evident to us. It's really funny. You look at Shea, and I remember there was a time in February that Shea was really disappointed because he'd been recalled to Nashville. It was either his second or third time. Was very disappointed when he returned, and it showed in his game. And I remember talking to him and saying, like, you're not playing the same way. And so he was really disappointed because he thought he'd lost his opportunity to go up to Nashville and stay in Nashville for the rest of the year. And you know what? We had a one-on-one chat and talked about some ways and some things that we can help him and he can help us try to help him get back to Nashville. And it was a really good first year. About 3 weeks later, I think he ended up going up and staying up for another 5-6 weeks, and he came back and joined us the year that we went to the finals and lost in 6 games to Hershey. But he was a really good young player. But he was like a lot of young players. You know, people say, how was he as a first-year player? It was like a lot of young guys. Those guys he was a player that had ups and downs, tried to adjust to the league, and you know, sometimes tried to do too much, and you had to pull him in a bit. But you know, he certainly turned out to be the player that I had envisioned him to be. Probably, and himself, he had envisioned the same type of career that he'd have now. And obviously Paul Fenton and that staff and David Poyle and have really done well drafting him and others that have shown that they've certainly got a keen eye for development.
And speaking of development, one guy that you really had a big hand in developing was one of the really good stories you hear in hockey, Rich Peverley. He didn't have an NHL contract, and all of a sudden now he's won the Stanley Cup.
Well, Rich Peverley was the guy that Ray Shero was the assistant GM at the time, and he knew Rich from, I think he knew him from college. I think he went to St. Lawrence, and Ray Shero obviously went to St. Lawrence, so he knew him a little bit. He knew him in the coast, and we were trying to decide who to bring into camp that year. We decided on another player. It never worked out. So Ray said, well, why don't we bring in this Rich Peverley? We got him from Reading. And brought him in, and then he was good. Like, he looked good. I hadn't seen him play, but he looked like he had high-level skill, really smart, just needed to tweak his game a little bit. And you know what, at that point, I think he was ready to embrace being in the American League and wanted to be a full-time American League player. And he paid his dues here, worked hard, played a couple of years, and really was a really good student of the game. And you know, it's evident that he took the right path. He ended up going up to Nashville, tried to get things going there, and got traded, or not traded, picked him up on waivers. Well, he ended up going to Atlanta. I was in Columbus at the time. We put in a claim for him and, you know, tried to pick him up, but Atlanta got him, and then he went to Boston, and then he ended up winning a Stanley Cup. But a really deserved player that deserved to be in the National Hockey League, because he not only had ability, he had the will to adapt, and he had the will of working, and you know, for me, he deserves to be there, and he had the skill to be able to play there.
I want to finish with your thoughts on 2 other guys, your assistant coaches when you were here as head coach. Todd Richards first, and then Lane Lambert in your last season as head coach.
Right. Well, it's funny. You know, when I was here, You know, Todd Richards was here when we won in 2003-04, and then Ray Shero, from winning the Cup, the Calder Cup, people usually get an opportunity to move, and Ray Shero got the job in Pittsburgh as the GM. He turned around and hired Todd Richards as his minor league coach in Wilkes-Barre, and then Todd went on to have a career at Minnesota Wild coach, and now he's the head coach in Columbus. So I talk to him all the time. We're going to be going head to head because I'm up in Winnipeg with the Jets, but so he's had some success. And then I had the opportunity to hire Lane Lambert in my last season here, and Lane was real good. I didn't know him at all, and he came in and we worked together for a year, and he was great, very intense guy, and now he's up with the Nashville Predators as an assistant coach, and I think it's a matter of time before he ends up being a head coach in the National Hockey League. So when you look at the Milwaukee Admirals, there's a lot of success that's come through here, especially in the years that we were lucky to be here. The years that I first came here in 03-04, boy, there's been, since the Nashville Predators affiliation, there's been a lot of NHL connection, whether through coaches, assistant coaches, or players. There's been a lot of success that's been surrounding this organization, and I'm happy to say that 35 years anniversary, they deserve a lot of credit for a lot of the success that's gone on here.